We're talking about cars out here, honestly. We don't have time for this political nonsense. Liz wants to buy a Buick.
Old cars.
Hey, you and me both, man.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
Tonight on Politics Now, President Donald Trump has the coronavirus, the political and health impact of We're in Black.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
Tonight on Politics Now, President Donald Trump has the coronavirus, the political and health impact of that diagnosis.
Today is only the first step in getting back to our new normal.
Nevada is slowly opening up. We have the new rules for how many people can be at large events.
The main issue is that for Latinos is how to pay the bills, how to put food on the table.
And we take a look at the role Nevada Latinos will play in deciding the next president of the United States.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now.
Thank you very much for joining us here on Politics Now. I'm John Langler, and we start with the major news out of Washington, D.C. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump have tested positive for COVID-19. Both are now in quarantine. A visit to Las Vegas next week now not expected to happen. So on Friday, President Trump announced the positive test, posting this on Twitter. "We will begin our quarantine and recovery process immediately. He says we will get through this together," unquote. The announcement came hours after President Trump confirmed to Fox News one of his closest aides, Hope Hicks, tested positive for the coronavirus.
She tested positive, and I just went out with a test. I'll see what, because we spent a lot of time, and the First Lady just went out with a test also. So whether we quarantine or whether we have it, I don't know.
Hicks traveled to several events with President Trump this week, including the debate on Tuesday and his rally in Minnesota on Wednesday. Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel also tested positive for the coronavirus. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden sent his well wishes to President Trump and the First Lady. The pair were, of course, on the debate stage together on Tuesday. They both tested negative beforehand and socially distanced on stage. This week marked 3 years since the 1 October shooting here in Las Vegas. There were tributes to the victims and survivors all across the valley.
Candace Bowers.
Survivors joined family and friends of those who lost their lives at the Route 91 concert grounds Thursday night, and also those who survived the shooting. The group started reading the names behind the concert grounds. Then they commemorated each person with a picture and a ringing of the bell. Survivors say they are grateful to be part of an amazing community.
We're really grateful that we can stand here 3 years later and join together and know that, out of a horrible tragedy, there was this wonderful family that was born. And so we know that wherever we go, when we see the little decals on the cars or the T-shirts or the hats or whatever, we know that there's family around.
Also this week, Clark County Sheriff Joe Lombardo announced the official death toll from that shooting is now 60. 2 more victims died from injuries suffered in the attacks in the last year or so. After the shooting, memorials popped up all across Las Vegas back in 2017. They were visible displays of sorrow left behind by a grieving community. But those memorials couldn't stay forever. So what has happened to what was left behind? If you were here 3 years ago, these aren't just memories. They're part of you, little pieces of your heart you shared or lost after Las Vegas's darkest night.
We ran out of room, so this is where they live.
At the Clark County Museum, 1 October is tucked into an endless series of boxes.
Ended up with some offices that weren't in use, and we needed to turn them into storage.
After the massacre, museum staff ended up with what was left behind at memorials. More than 20,000 artifacts. Cynthia Sanford is the museum's registrar.
By holding on to these objects, we were telling the history of how the community reacted, and then we were also telling individual stories.
Today, it's all in storage. Most of it the museum won't let us see, but there isn't enough room. So these climate-controlled offices hold the rest.
So this is just an example of the amount of items that were left on each cross.
This time of year, parts of the archive are dusted off again. The grief is given time to breathe.
The photos of victims or friends and family, those are the hardest things to look at because that really hits home that it was a person.
Museum staff are working on a new, larger storage facility. Its 1 October archive gets moved in first. Until then, perhaps there's comfort knowing when Las Vegas poured its heart out, It didn't just go away.
It reminds you of the bad times, but it also reminds you that, there are people here who've got your back.
Parts of the museum's archive are now on display at the Clark County Government Center downtown. The county is planning a future memorial, and that is expected to involve more of the museum's collection. The big news for Nevadans this week also, that new 250-person capacity limit on large gatherings. And this means events could soon be allowed at major venues. That includes games for UNLV football, for example, at Allegiant Stadium. As Orko Mana explains, strict guidelines, though, will still need to be followed.
Today is only the first step in getting back to our new normal.
Change is coming to COVID-19 restrictions in Nevada. Governor Steve Sisolak increasing the group gathering limit to 250 people or 50% capacity of a venue, whichever is smaller. This means we could soon see more events across the valley.
We're excited to see that those can come back.
Pam Howitt owns local catering company Divine Events. Business has been slow due to the coronavirus, but she's confident the 250-person cap will turn things around.
It's so great. It means we can get back to our average number of people that we're used to working with.
The 250-person limit applies to conventions too, but if certain requirements are met, up to 1,000 attendees could be allowed.
This is an important first step towards revitalizing our hospitality industry under the strongest social distancing and safety guidelines in the nation.
If larger venues with more than 2,500 seats want to have an event, they can host up to 10% of their capacity. That goes for places such as Allegiant Stadium and the Thomas & Mack Center, UNLV already announcing their plan for a limited number of fans to attend football games. But additional rules must be followed and plans must be submitted and approved by the state. Live entertainment can also return with similar capacity limits and social distancing. Las Vegas performer Michelle Johnson says that's music to her ears.
Anything is better than what we're doing now, which is missing the stage. Anything's better than that. I try to stay positive, and I think it's a step in the right direction.
That direction is forward.
If any state is going to come back stronger, it's going to be this one.
Orko Mana, 8 News Now.
There will also be less restrictions for in-person religious services and open houses. Governor Sisolak, though, says he is still working on guidance for that moving forward. All right, so the election is about a month away, and many of you still have questions about how it's going to work this year in Nevada. Here in Clark County, the registrar says 1.2 million mail-in ballots are being sent to all registered voters. The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy has some more information on key dates that are useful for you.
Some voters in Clark County may have already received mail from the registrar. It's not the official ballot, though. It should be a sample ballot along with information about early voting and in-person locations for Election Day. The sample ballot gives voters a chance to see it ahead of time. Registrar Joe Gloria told the I-Team this is the longest ballot Clark County has had. Starting October 7th, Gloria said the official mail-in ballot would be sent along with a postage-paid return envelope, which must be postmarked by Election Day, November 3rd. Voters can track their ballot online or by calling the registrar's office. Early voting begins October 17th and ends on October 30th. You can vote in person, drop off your ballot at the in-person location, or put it in the mail. Mail-in ballots can be dropped off at early voting locations and at polling places on Election Day. There is a 7-day period post-Election Day for counties to receive mail-in ballots. As for the results, according to the Nevada Secretary of State, they are unofficial until each county certifies results, which can take up to 13 days after the election. Here's Clark County Registrar Joe Gloria.
There will be no final results on election night. We will definitely be reporting an unofficial total for our in-person early voting and election day sites minus the provisional votes, but the mail ballots will be counted for several days after election day, so our final unofficial won't be available till well after election day.
And a reminder, voters can vote in person or by mail due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's against the law to do both. Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
We have links where you can register to vote or double check your information at 8newsnow.com. So every active registered voter in Clark County, as Vanessa mentioned, is getting sent a ballot. So let's look at how that breaks down. As of October 1st, there are 1,231,000 active registered voters. 504,000 are Democrats, about 350,000 in Clark County are Republican. Statewide, or in Clark County, I beg your pardon. About 300,000 are registered as nonpartisan. The other groups combine for about 75,000 voters. A record number of Latinos are expected to be eligible to vote this November. Our reporter Kate Houston tells us about the importance in Nevada of the Latino vote.
The Pew Research Center projects 32 million Latinos will be eligible to vote this election. That number exceeds Black eligible voters for the first time.
In Nevada, the research group says nearly 20% of eligible voters are Latino. Some of the key issues they'll be focusing on tonight are the economy and health care. I spoke to Bianca Balderas, a political organizer with Make the Road Action. She says Nevada saw the power of the Latino vote during the caucus.
Latinos have a large power to swing vote, specifically here in Nevada, where we're a minority state. We're very diverse, which is very beautiful, but they also have a large power to swing the election.
Latinos for Trump say a key issue for Latino voters across the U.S. and in Nevada is the economy.
The main issue is that for Latinos is how to pay the bills, how to put food on the table, how to look for the future for the children. And so the number one issue, without doubt, is the economy. The second to that, it becomes healthcare and also school or education.
He adds that safety is another priority for Latino voters. Both Balderas and Marquez agree that getting younger voters will be important this election. Pew Research Center says Gen Z, which ranges in age from 18 to 23, will make up 1 in 10 eligible voters this November. Kate Houston, 8 News Now.
And out of those eligible Gen Z voters, about 22% are Hispanic in Nevada. All right, it was a debate we're going to remember, and if you didn't, we're going to talk about it. Reaction from the first presidential debate and the rule changes that may come out of it. And also next on Politics Now, we're going to look at the war of words in the race for Congressional District 3. You're watching Politics Now. Bueno.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
President Donald Trump and challenger Joe Biden on stage for the first time. The first of 3 scheduled presidential debates was earlier in the week. The commission that puts the debates together quickly said afterwards they plan to make some changes to the structure. Morgan Wright's on Capitol Hill with reaction.
In the first of 3 scheduled presidential debates, President Donald Trump and Democratic nominee Joe Biden traded blows and sharp criticism.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, Rhode Island Senator Jack Reed says Biden was forced to fight back.
He tried his best to maintain a much more professional and thoughtful approach to the debate.
I thought Joe Biden presented a very clear vision of what we need to do with COVID-19.
But Maryland Senator Ben Cardin says the exchange wasn't productive.
You had the president who established the rules for this debate and then violating those rules. President Trump just does not follow rules.
Republican Senator Mitt Romney blamed the format.
2 minutes for each side and then open discussion. I thought, oh my goodness.
A major sticking point during the debate was President Trump's apparent refusal to condemn white supremacy.
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what, somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left.
I was very disappointed when the president couldn't decisively and unequivocally denounce white nationalism.
I think he misspoke.
Republican Senator Tim Scott wants a better explanation.
I think he should correct it. If he doesn't correct it, I guess he didn't misspeak.
But House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy defended President Trump.
Well, how many times does he have to say it? If the question is, would you denounce it? And the answer is yes, he did that.
The vice presidential candidates take the stage next week. Reporting in Washington, I'm Morgan Wright.
All right, now let's check out some of the spending on advertising going on in the congressional races here in Nevada, in southern Nevada particularly. Democratic Congressman Stephen Horsford has a new ad out called Helping. It features Nevada businesses that received Paycheck Protection loans. Horsford is facing Republican and former state Assemblyman Jim Marchant for that seat in Congress. Now, that race has not seen the attack ads that have been on the airwaves in Congressional District 3. Incumbent Democratic Congresswoman Susie Lee's been running 3 different television ads against her opponent, Republican Dan Rodheimer. Her 6-figure ad buy calls Rodheimer a hothead, dangerous, and accuses him of having an alarmingly violent rap sheet. Rodheimer is a former pro wrestler, and he currently owns some businesses here in Las Vegas. Now, we have reported on those 911 calls before here on 8 News Now. You can see stories about that at 8newsnow.com. As for Rodheimer, he has a new ad himself defending himself. It features his now wife, Sarah Rodheimer, who made those calls.
What happened between Dan and I was a verbal argument, plain and simple. Dan has never laid a hand on me, not then or ever.
The ad, as you see there, has Rodheimer in the background serving his family dinner. Rodheimer has run some attack ads of his own in this campaign. He's criticized Susie Lee for that PPP loan taken by her husband's casino company. But there has been a bit of a surprise endorsement in this race this week. The Las Vegas Review-Journal endorsed incumbent Susie Lee for Congressional District 3. Traditionally, the RJ endorses Republicans. Its editorial board wrote, as you see on your screen, Susie Lee has been a productive, moderate voice and deserves another term to demonstrate her devotion to addressing Washington's dysfunction. The RJ also said Dan Rodheimer would be a strong advocate for entrepreneurs and economic growth. A fast-tracked nomination coming up next on Politics Now. The timeline for Judge Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation hearings for the Supreme Court in the Senate and what Nevada's senators are saying about meeting with her. Plus,
I'm Alexandra Limon in Washington. Coming up, I'll tell you why it will likely be difficult for another coronavirus relief package to be approved.
he was taken. Thank you. In Washington, Supreme Court nominee Judge Amy Coney Barrett starts meeting with senators this week. This is ahead of a fast-track confirmation process to fill the vacancy left by the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Barrett met with Vice President Mike Pence and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to kick off the process. Most Americans are opposing a confirmation before Election Day, but McConnell says that was before the public knew about Barrett's credentials.
Now they have a chance to talk about a real flesh and blood person. She's really an exemplary person. The president could not have picked a better nominee for this.